So Mesmer. Alright, guys. Mesmer. Alright. They've kind of messed with Mesmer a little bit. They took the old meta build and kind of threw it away. So we'll go over what I run on my Mesmer. I run full Berserker with Scholar. I still believe that Scholar is the best for Mesmer. I know there's been some debate, but I don't really think that it's very compelling. I've not heard an argument against Scholar for Mesmer that I would buy. Berserker runes. The standard build is going to be Sword, Sword, and Focus. I also keep with me a pistol for certain situations. There are situations where pistol is superior to sword. I don't want to go over every specific fight in every dungeon, but there are certain bosses and mobs where pistol phantasms will not be killed. Pretty much not going to kill like the A-bomb in a Raw Path 2. He really won't kill your pistol phantasms. He will kill your sword phantasms, but he won't kill your pistol. And at some point, you'll eventually have 3 pistol phantasms up, and you'll be doing pretty decent damage. Whereas if you were using sword, you wouldn't have that many phantasms up, and your damage wouldn't be as good. But in general, sword is better than pistol. So I say the default is covered by offhand sword. And focus is the utility phantasm, because the warden destroys projectiles. And the curtain is a CC. That is quite useful. So, as far as stacking goes, I should mention that. Where's stacking weapon? I stack Perception. You want to try to get to close to 100% chance to crit with Mesmer, and Perception will allow you to get there pretty well. And I use Precision Food. So yeah, I highly recommend Perception. I have probably too many Perception stacking items now that you only need one because they screwed us. But that's neither here nor there. So now traits. There's a couple different builds you can run now, and none has really set themselves above the rest in terms of loadout. There's pros and cons to everything. Mesmer right now is so frustrating trait-wise because all the good traits are so spread out. And not confined to 1 or 2 lines, that you can't really get everything you want. You really will struggle to have all the good traits in one build, and they made it even worse by moving empowering mantras to domination. It is just really difficult to run the max DPS Mesmer build anymore, especially focusing on phantasms. So, here we go. This is the default build that I would say. 66002. This build is obviously the highest DPS build that a Mesmer can put out. So, going through, Illusion of Vulnerability. This is a pretty sweet trait, I will honestly say. The inflict vulnerability when you interrupt a foe actually goes quite well with, where is it, the mantra that dazes the target, mantra of distraction. You can get 3 quick interrupts with mantra of distraction, power lock, and immediately stack 9 stacks of vuln on something if need be. It's a pretty good trait to run. Empowered illusions, your illusions do 15% more damage. This is just a DPS buff to your phantasms, always good. Dazzling, dazing a foe also interrupts vulnerability, or dazing a foe also applies vulnerability. So again, when you power lock 15 stacks of vuln, it's pretty strong way to start a fight or to do a big burst. So I take Signet Mastery here. The advantage of Signet Mastery is that there's no better trait to take here. Like, literally, there is no other trait to take here. I considered Rending Shatter, but I never Shatter in a Phantasm-based DPS build. Honestly, there is nothing good to take here. Signet Mastery is the best. The advantage of Signet Mastery is it lets you use Signet of Ether as your heal. Without Signet Mastery, Signet of Ether kind of sucks. The cooldown is just too long, and you can get yourself in situations where you just die because you need a heal. So once you get to use Signet Mastery, you get to use Signet of Ether. The heal is different. The active is good, and the passive is good. And the active of restoring your phantasms is also good. So Signet Mastery makes Signet of Ether really good, and I kind of recommend moving in that direction. Wastrel's Punishment, increased damage to foes who are not using a skill. This is just another 5% boost. It's going to come in handy quite a bit of time. And then Empowering Mantras, obviously, you're almost always going to have 2 mantras on your bar. There are situations where you know you won't need your heal skill. You can use Mantra of Recovery for another 4% damage, but for the most part, you want Empowering Mantras. There's a trade-off. The Mantra heal sucks. Like, I'm not gonna lie. The benefit you gain from it, like the amount of heal is just, I don't know, it's pretty weak compared to the Signet, especially with the Signet being traded. But if you can run the Mantra heal and get away with it, be my guest. I don't care for it, but be my guest. I still think with the Signet Mastery, that Signet of Ether will do more for you. But run what you like on that, whatever you can survive best with. So they nerfed Critical Infusion. That sucks. This was a really good trait for the Mesmer. It gave Mesmer's Permavigor. Now Mesmer's only have half Vigor. So it was a little bit of a knock to Mesmer's survivability. I would be surprised if most people notice this, honestly. I feel like people kind of overrate it. Like, Permavigor is super strong in PvP, but in PvE, you don't dodge that much, especially on Mesmer with Blurred Frenzy. If you know boss fights really, really well, you're going to use your Blurred Frenzy quite a bit, and you're not going to need to, like, ever blow 2 dodges and Blurred Frenzy. It'll be pretty rare. So, maybe, like, if you're doing solos, it's useful, but Critical Infusion, I think the nerf is going to be a little bit overdone. I don't think it's as big of a deal as people think in PvE. Phantasmal Fury. Phantasms have Fury. That's just a straight DPS boost. Your Phantasms do a pretty big share of your overall DPS, so giving them Fury is good. Sharper Images. Phantasms inflict bleeding. This is kind of crappy. It's good with the Warden, bad with the Swordsman, and good with the Pistol. You'll notice it a lot on the times where you have to use Pistol that you have stronger bleed stacks. So, Blade Training. Blade Training is super good. You get extra precision. It lowers the cooldown of your sword skills. Gives you Blurred Frenzy more often. It's pretty much a top trait. Nothing bad about that. So next, Confusing Combatants. Causes confusion when your illusions are killed. Blah. It's useless in PvP. And then lastly, there's not really another good trait to take here. You can take, Triumphant Distortion's terrible. Harmonious Mantras just has the most synergy especially with Empowering Mantras and what the build is trying to do. The extra mantra charge makes the mantra heal decent. I would say Harmonious Mantras is where you want to be. And then lastly, down in Illusions, Compounding Power, 3% damage for each of your active illusions. It's just another DPS boost. So let's go over variants of this build. There's going to be situations where you don't necessarily want to run the build exactly like this. And some of those times will be when you want Warden's feedback, which is focus reflex. Well, in this case, you're going to take 10 out of dueling, and I would take 10 out of illusions and go for glamour mastery and Warden's feedback. So this is sort of like the utility version of the build. If you don't have a guardian in your party and you're the Mesmer and you're responsible for all the reflex in the group, and you're in a dungeon like CM or SE where there's a lot of projectiles and you have to reflect, this is kind of the loadout you're going to want to run, because it's going to give you more feedback uptime, and it's going to give you the focus reflex on your Warden, and it's going to lower the cooldown of both of those skills. So this is sort of like the utility version of the build. You sacrifice a little bit of DPS for a lot more utility. I would consider this if you need the reflex setup. But for the most part, I really think that once people get used to running max DPS, they will definitely enjoy the benefits of that, and they will realize that they don't need the focus reflex as much as they probably thought they did. There we go. So other utility skills, obviously feedback is your big reflect. It's one of the most powerful skills in the game. Everyone knows what that's capable of. Mantra of Resolve never leaves my bar. It is an AoE party condition cleanse. It's really good. Mantra of Distraction, really good because it stacks Vuln and is an interrupt. You can't really go wrong with that. Signet of Inspiration is also useful if your party doesn't really have an Ellie in it and you need to stack Might. The other one that you can use, Mantra of Concentration, when you need stability. You can basically use this slot as sort of like your swap around based on the situation you're in. If you really need a lot of condition off, you can bring in Nullfield and do that. And lastly, Time Warp. Obviously, it's the go-to PvP skill, or PvE, I should say. Massive damage boost for your whole party. So there's a lot of different things you can do with the Mesmer too. You can either you can even go down to 10 in domination to go up to do it that way. You could even go down that way and go like full Phantasm and get Phantasmal Haste. There's just a lot you can do with the Mesmer, and what's annoying is that Illusionist Celerity is so good. It is such a powerful trait that it's hard to not have it. I know Jerem in Snowcrows likes this loadout, where you go 6-5-0-0-3. I also agree that that's pretty good. You're missing out on Harmonious Mantras, but you get the benefit of Illusionist Celerity. This might be the overall better loadout when all is said and done if you don't need the Harmonious Mantras. But I guess people will have to play with their Mesmer, find out what they like best. But this is definitely an option as well. So I am going to switch professions. Does anyone have any last questions about Mesmer before we go? So sword pistol isn't viable. No, sword pistol is good. I explained that earlier in the... I explained it earlier when I was talking about Mesmer. Whether you do sword or sword pistol, it depends on the particular boss you're fighting. If you are fighting certain bosses, the sword phantasm will never die. And if the sword phantasm never dies, it does more damage than the pistol. However, there's a lot of bosses where the sword phantasm will die a lot and the pistol phantasm will live, and if that's the case, then you want the pistol. Someone did ask what food I use. I generally, just for casual runs, I'll use slices of candy dragon rolls. But also, let's go. I'll show you the other food that you want to use. All right, bowls of seaweed salad. So, bowls of seaweed salad, it is a 10% damage boost while moving. That counts for your reflex too. So, if you drop a feedback and Lupicus say bubbles and you're moving back and forth inside your feedback, you'll get the extra 10% damage boost. It'll take some getting used to, obviously, for sure. But when you're fighting, instead of standing still, you want to strafe back and forth. And if you can strafe back and forth while you're fighting, then seaweed salad is pretty much the top food. And since it applies to your reflex really well, I would definitely recommend on Mesmer rocking seaweed salad. That's it for the food. So is seaweed salad the best food for everyone? Not everyone. Not every profession can move. A lot of professions, you have to kind of be stationary. Like Ellie, you can, some of the skills root you. Warrior, like 100 Blades, roots you. The Ranger sword auto attack roots you. There's definitely times where you won't be getting the buff, and you have to consider that downtime in your calculations. So Mesmer is one of the few professions that can keep it up 100% of the time, so I highly recommend seaweed salad on Mesmer, at least. So that's it for Mesmer. Yeah, Victorix brings up a point about power block. So ANET released this incredibly OP trait power block that ignores Defiant. It is completely broken. It is completely stupid. And you can basically make it so that Lupicus never uses a single attack. They need to really fix this trait in a hurry. I'm not even going to mention it because I assume it's a bug and that they'll fix it. But it's really OP right now and broken. Are seaweed salads cheap? I don't believe they're very cheap. No, seaweed salad is 40 silver each. There is a cheaper one. Here's the cheap version. It is 21 silver each, and it's 8% damage. So there is the cheap version, quote unquote. Those are it's an expensive food, but when you have to have the best, there you go with. That's why you see I have Minotaur steaks and candy dragon rolls. For casual runs, I don't break out this stuff, but generally Minotaur steaks, candy dragon rolls are your good. All right, so we're gonna move on.